Hello, in this video we're going to look at the process that we need to go through to prepare our financial statements. So this is the process that I've created. It's called the 6 P's of preparation, and that is broken down of planning, pre-prep, papers, production, pre-completion and post-completion. So starting with planning, basically we're going to work out what kind of job it is. So obviously the different clients will have a slightly different process that we need to go through. Some will be on Xero and everything will be tickety-boo and we can just pull the information in, they'll be quite easy. Other people, we might have manual records. Other people might be on Sage who haven't had the year-end journals posted each year, and other people might just be on rubbish software that we can't guarantee. So depending on the different types of clients that we have, will depend on the job type, and we need to be clear about that going into the job so that we do the right things. We might also need to set up the template for the working papers. For most of the VAT registered businesses where we do the VAT returns, we should already have working papers in place because we'll be doing the reconciliations for the VAT returns after completing the VAT return each quarter. So we'll already have working papers set up for those ones, but everyone else will need working papers set up. And then the sort of main part of the planning will be working through the worksheet within the working papers for the planning section. So there'll be videos taking you through each of these stages in the main module of the training. Then moving on to pre-prep. This is looking at the records within Sage or Xero and preparing them ready for year end. So we're going to be checking the client postings if they've been doing their own bookkeeping. We're going to make sure that all relevant year end journals have been posted from the previous year. And yeah, just making sure that they're in a position ready for us to start work on. Then within the papers section, this is going to be all of your workings, your reconciliations, any backup that you've acquired through the process to confirm any numbers, and also any client confirmations of numbers that we've received. So this is going to be the bulk of the work. This is where most of the information that you're going to be preparing will be. We're going to work through the balance sheet items first, because if you can confirm the balance of those items at year end, then basically whatever falls out of that will be through the profit and loss. So we should be in a fairly good place by that point. And then what we'll do is an analytical review of the profit and loss, and that's basically a line by line review of the profit and loss, seeing where things have gone up or down from the previous year and just giving a brief explanation why. Obviously with COVID over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of movement in some things, like rent in some places has dropped by a quarter or 3/4, but we know why that is. So for example, the pub clients, their rent will have dropped because the pubco that they're renting from will have cancelled their rent for a certain length of time because the pubs have been closed. But just having answers for why that is, so that when I go or a manager or another director goes to talk to the client about things, we can just whiz through and just go, this is the reason we've come up with, does that sound about right? Or is there something else going on there that we need to look at? Basically, in this section, you're going to document everything. You need to treat it as though somebody completely cold to the client and to everything. Basically, we'll be able to come and look at the papers document and understand everything that's going on without having to ask any questions. That's where we're aiming for. Just document absolutely everything. Then the next section is about production, and this is about the production of the financial statements in TaxCalc. So obviously part of that will be setting TaxCalc up correctly. In the first section, there's all about the setting things up and using the correct accounting standard and all that sort of thing. Then we've got importing the accounts data into TaxCalc. That might be from Xero, it might be in from Sage, it might be in from a manual account that we've set up in Spreadsheet. We might make some minor presentation adjustments, but really we want all the adjustments to be made in Xero or Sage at this point. We don't want to be having to do too much adjustment when it comes to preparing producing the accounts within TaxCalc, because anything that we adjust within TaxCalc, we're then going to have to post back into Xero. So as far as we absolutely can, we want to be posting into Xero, so that we don't have to do that extra step of posting back into Xero. There might still be something, but if we can keep that as minimal as possible, then that's ideal. Then we've got the disclosure checklist. That's all to do with the notes to the financial statements. There are certain things that we have to be disclosing. So, for example, the employees employed during the year, that note that says how many employees there are during the year, that is a requirement. Now, the software will pick that up and make sure that you're doing most of these things, but we just have a few questions in the spreadsheet that we'll just work through and make sure that everything that should be disclosed is being disclosed. Then the penultimate step is the pre-completion. For most part, this is where your job will finish, and that's basically completing the pre-completion worksheet within the working papers and effectively printing a PDF of the set of accounts and just linking it all back to the working papers that you've prepared and confirming that all the numbers within the accounts actually match back to the calculations and the confirmations that we've written in the papers. And you'll be doing that by actually referencing back. So if it's referenced, then it should match. Any review points that come from manager or director, it'll be reviewed by the manager or director, and then it might come back to you with any review points. And if it does, then you'll just fix those review points. And if required, if there's been some adjustments, say to some of the numbers, then you might need to just relink everything and just revisit that pre-completion worksheet to make sure that you've done everything that needs to be done. And then finally, the manager or director will liaise with the client to organise a year-end meeting and or just signing off on the accounts. So again, that bit's pretty much out of your hands, but it's just so that you know what the process is. And then once that's been done, the accounts have been signed, then the post-completion section is all about submitting the accounts and corporation tax return to HMRC and Companies House. This is usually done by the manager or director, but occasionally might be handed down for you to do, so it's worth you knowing what to do and how to do it. And then once you or they have submitted the accounts, it's about completing the post-completion checklist. This needs to be done by whoever has submitted the accounts at the same time, because that way we can make sure that everything that needs to be done has been done. And then the final point is, if the client would like a physical set of accounts, then it's just printing out that final set of accounts and getting a director to sign off on the accountant's report so that it can go in the post out to the client. So that is the overview of the 6 P's of preparation. Now, if you head on through all the modules, we'll deep dive into each section with a whole load of videos showing you what to do.